Hey everybody, GT Cam back to visit y'all again. Have a little different approach tonight. So, you all, well, I can't say you all, but plenty of people out there, and I'm sure you've seen them, talk about how expensive Snap-on is. Why the blankety blank is Snap-on so expensive? I've got a few insights into this. I don't have any sources anywhere, but this is based on my years of experience with sourcing and manufacturing and all of that related stuff. So first up, the number one cost most businesses have is labor, flat out. And if you're making stuff in the US, your labor costs are naturally going to be significantly higher than they are in other parts of the world. That's why we have stuff that goes to Mexico for production, or it goes to China for production, or Taiwan. Taiwan lost out somewhat to China, as I'm sure you all have seen as things have progressed. Now we're starting to see more India stuff too. You'll notice that with some of the new Craftsman stuff. So right off the get-go, we have labor. Second to that, and these aren't in any particular order, I just named labor first because it's usually the most expensive. Then we got prestige and positioning. We all look at Harbor Freight and we look down on that stuff a lot of times because of the price, and plenty of people that know the price of everything and the value of nothing are happy to spend, you know, the $5 or $10 or whatever it is, and they'll beat the crap out of it and it gets treated as though it's disposable. Okay? You don't typically, let me rephrase that, you don't typically treat your more expensive tools that way. You take better care of them. So you have that. And also, name me somebody that's better at any of the stuff, like just flat out. There's some companies that are close to being as good, and occasionally you might see somebody outdo them on something, but for the most part, they're really good at what they do. Behind that, we have the business structure. You have to have a degree of, what's the term I'm looking for here? You got to be, everybody in the food chain's got to be able to make money. And that goes from your guy that's driving the truck to the manufacturer to the people making the stuff. So right there you have this business structure that doesn't exist in other places. And that goes to all the food, trucks. We got the QA and the quality assurance. I don't know about you guys, but every single new item I've gotten from Snap-on has been absolutely bang on, okay? There isn't anybody that does this stuff better from a QA standpoint. There are companies that do as good with some things, but across the board, I just haven't seen it as consistent as it is with them. QA and quality costs money, period. R&D, research and development. This is one of the big costs for a lot of companies behind labor. And I don't think anybody puts more effort into their tools than Snap-on does, period. You got their code scanners, you got their specialty tools like their steering box puller, pitman arm puller, whatever you want to call the thing. You know, their pliers. Look at the different varieties of the pliers they have out there. They do really good with their R&D. R&D costs money. A lot of companies, like say Harbor Freight's Icon, can come along and offer a product at a fraction of the cost because they aren't spending nearly as much money on their R&D. So we got that. Steel sourcing, just material sourcing in general. If you look at one of the other companies, if they're making their stuff in China, their material costs are a whole bunch lower than somebody sourcing US made steel. There's a company recently, I don't remember the name of them, they make heavy electrical componentry, and they have these copper lugs that they make. They cannot source their material as cheap as you can buy the completed product from China for. So if you're looking at stuff, you're like, well, why is this so cheap? Perhaps instead of looking at why some things are so expensive, we need to be looking more at why are some things so cheap? What are the corners that have been cut here? Because I can guarantee you those alloys between those two types of copper are not the same. They may both be copper, but what else is in that copper? So steel sourcing is another one. Steel alloy. One thing that Snap-on does better than just about everybody is their alloy. Whether some people say it's because it's virgin steel, whatever. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's virgin or not. If it's not the right alloy, it's not going to work. The little molecules got to be right. You got to have your right blend of chromium and iron and molybdenum and vanadium and every other little thing they include in there. So their alloy is a major one. Their heat treat is also a significant factor. Make no mistake. I don't think anybody has the heat treat of their sockets down better than Snap-on does. As far as the rest of the tools, they're solid too. The sockets are the ones that jump out at me because they wear longer than most of what I've seen. We've got a freaking 1/2-inch ratchet at work, an S80. That thing, I don't know how old it is, but it's probably from somewhere near the beginning of the S80 production. It is smooth as butter. And the sides of that thing are beat all to hell because somebody used it as a hammer too. And it still works great. Now, admittedly, there's probably a fair amount of material in it, but when you have your steel alloy and your heat treat absolutely nailed, you can do some amazing stuff. Buck Knives was notorious for being able to take a stainless steel alloy 420, and they had a heat treat method, I think that was attributable to Paul Bose, that made that steel viable in their knives. Without their heat treat, 420 was absolutely garbage for knife blades, but their heat treat made it work. So, long story short, there's a lot of factors as to why some of these products cost as much. If you take a quick look at some of the newer generation stuff that says it's US made, not necessarily pointing the finger at SK, I love some of their designs, but when you see stuff that says USA and the price is lower, chances are good they're sourcing at least some of the materials from out of country. It may be that some of the guts are being made overseas. It may be that they're making it here in the US, but the steel is sourced from China. So keep these things in mind when you're asking why it costs so much. You'll notice that even the Taiwan stuff is not nearly as cheap as the China-made stuff. It's just, that's kind of the whole essence of it is you really have to look at what you're getting, where it's coming from, what the reputation is behind the company, because just looking at it and going, why does that cost so much? But nobody ever looks at the other stuff and goes, well, why is that so cheap? Like, what's missing here? Like when I went through the sale flyer for Harbor Freight the other day and there's a freaking pressure washer in there for, I think it was like 65 bucks or something. Like, that's low enough that my alarm bells go off. So, anyway, that's just my little take on why the Snap-on stuff costs so much. Feel free to drop in the comments what you think it is. Number one, I don't think it's gouging. I think they have a legitimate stake. But that's my view. Anyway, you guys have a good one. GT Cam out.